Okay, we are going to get started. So welcome everybody to today's event all about document management and Microsoft Dynamics. I'm Jason Gumpert from msdynamicsworld.com. I am very pleased to be hosting today's event and to welcome our presenter, Chris Hopper. He is Senior Product Marketing Specialist at Bottomline Technologies. It's great to have him with us. And as we get started, I just want to remind you on the line that we do welcome your questions and your input, and I know Chris will be making time at different points throughout this presentation to answer your questions. You can use the Q&A box you should see to the right of the main presentation area to enter your questions at any point, and I'm sure we will make time to get to them. So without any further delay, I am going to hand things off to Chris to get us started.
Great, thank you very much, Jason. As Jason sort of said, I'm one of the product managers at Bottomline Technologies. I may be joined by a colleague of mine, Koen Govers, a little bit later on to help with some of the Q&As. Koen is the product manager for the particular products that we're talking about today. And today we're going to be discussing document management for Microsoft Dynamics AX and Dynamics 365 operations. And I anticipate that this is probably going to take about 45 minutes to run through. Now, during the webinar today, we're going to start by talking about the relevance of documents in, what is today a digital transformation world. We're also going to discuss some of the key topics around implementation of document management in Dynamics and take a look at some of the key considerations when integrating document management with Dynamics AX and 365. We're then going to move on to talk about how specialist document management solutions can help enhance your capabilities. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the security issues which should certainly be considered when looking at document management. So let's start by looking at what document management should be part of your system planning, in advance. A lot of companies leave it as an afterthought, but it's certainly something that bears a little bit more consideration than that. Now, it's generally understood that there are significant advantages in removing paper from systems, and according to research companies like AIM, removing paper from processes can increase process efficiency by up to 300%. But despite this, it appears documents are going to be with us for some time to come. At the moment, 76% of line of business managers tell us that they're reliant on paper documents, and 50% of these still expect that that is going to be the case in 5 years' time. Now, outdated document processes are an issue. 83% of business professionals state that outdated ways of working with documents inhibit productivity. So the question is often, have organisations, document processes, kept up with the pace of their modern business practices? Now, if you're a senior C-level manager, you may be particularly interested in this statistic. And 76% of line of business leaders claim that disconnected document processes lead to issues recognising revenue. Okay, outdated document processes can seriously impact a company's bottom line. And my final statistic to get us started with for the moment is that 46% of business leaders tell us that disconnected document processes impair their ability to plan, forecast and budget due to lack of visibility. Now, the current reality is that organisations are still dependent on document-centric processes, and there's significant gains to be made with relatively little investment looking at state-of-the-art document solutions. And before we move on, I just want to talk about the elephant in the room, and that is compliance. As Paul Multy, who is an ex-Deputy Attorney General of the USA, he put it very succinctly, and he said that if you think document compliance is expensive, try non-compliance. And in most modern business environments, there are very few organisations that escape document-centric regulatory requirements. Okay, but they're often seen as operationally disruptive. Modern document solutions can help you automate much of this, and in many cases, what these document solutions will help you do is eliminate low-value manual tasks at the same time as reducing compliance exceptions by, say, up to about 85% on average, the research shows. Now, that's all very well and good, but I want to talk about maximising the value of your business documents. Now, our experience in helping customers with document management systems is that a structured approach to document management pays great dividends. But it's also something which is best implemented progressively rather than just in one hit. If you implement over a period of time, it helps you ensure that it meets your practical rather than your theoretical business needs. And as these systems start to take hold in your business, your expectations and your experience will change what you expect of them. Now, there are many approaches to this, but one successful approach which we recommend is, like, first of all, focus on developing high-quality external touching documents. We've got this mantra inside Bottomline, which is like every customer touch point is an opportunity to impress. After that, let's look at automating filing, archiving, and retrieval of regulated documents. Okay, initially this is to reduce company audit risk, but often after that organisations can gain considerable value by sharing some of these documents in their supply chain. You can then look at ways in which you can automate the capture of inbound information into your business, making inbound documents processable for better insight and more effective processing efficiency. Next, build up repositories of processable information. You may then want to develop dashboards, or these days you may want to expose it to analytics engines such as Microsoft Business Intelligence to maximise the insight into the information that you're now unlocking. You can then look at ways of leveraging this information for competitive advantage to enhance that access. Basically promoting greater internal efficiency. People that are using document repositories typically see response times about 30% faster than those organisations which are not. And finally, open up all the relevant document access in a controlled way to enhance the services you provide both to your internal and your external users. Now, our experience is that this takes some time to implement. The first stages are very important, but if you set yourself a goal of something like 2 to 3 years to get from one end of this process to another, that would probably be realistic. Now, I want to move on and take a look at some of the key considerations when implementing document management systems in Dynamics environments. Now, first of all, you can manage documents within your ERP, but quite candidly speaking, document management is better implemented outside of your ERP. Because ERPs are not simply designed to manage unstructured data or image files well. Now, most business documents actually sit outside of the ERP anyway. So, for example, it could be engineering systems, marketing systems, CRM systems, and so on. Okay, all of these are valuable sources of information which you could use to augment the documentation that you deliver. Most employees, of course, are outside the ERP systems. Okay, and we've already heard how important documents remain to modern businesses. And finally, obviously, a lot of documentation is going to be used to communicate outside of the business completely to third parties. So there's a lot of instances where document management is best served outside of the ERP. Now, as a Dynamics user, you're going to be fully aware of the benefits of managing documents outside of the ERP. Microsoft offers a range of repositories to hold documents, including SharePoint and Azure Blob Space. Now, links are normally created between customer records and business tasks and the location of the relevant documents in your chosen external document database. And what this does is it provides context-relevant access to these documents to all of the Dynamics users. But it does make it a little bit more complicated for users that are not necessarily Dynamics users to actually access these documents, or for external systems to access these documents. Now, document management can help fix this accessibility issue, but it's also important to remember that other document repositories can also be used. I mean, these may be important to you if you have data sovereignty concerns, or if you simply want to protect your information beyond your own firewalls. So how can specialized document management enhance your native Dynamics capabilities? And just talking about this on a very high level, okay, it can help you in 4 ways. The first way it can help you is document output management, or as we like to call it, DOM. This can help you make brand quality documents much more simply and cost effectively than using native tools. You can also enhance your communications. Okay, This allows you to track delivery of documents to ensure they arrive when and where they're needed. You can manage the storage, archive and retrieval of documents for compliance, to basically enhance the visibility for you and your supply chain. Okay, and finally, document management that can help you avoid a lot of manual tasks associated with capturing inbound unstructured data into a processable format. And we're going to talk about some of those things in a little bit more detail as we go through. But let's take a closer look at some of the integration issues with document management when you're talking about into Dynamics AX. And when we look at this, we constantly run up against some key themes, and I just want to take a few moments to kind of run through what some of those themes are. Now let's take a look at document management and Microsoft Lifecycle Services. Now, one of the important changes Microsoft are making with the introduction of Dynamics 365 operations is how the product is customized and how third-party software integrates into it. Now, this is quite a clever move on Microsoft's part, as many Dynamics AX customizations overwrote core code, and it basically made it complicated for both AX users to migrate to different versions of Dynamics, and alternatively, it also made it difficult for Microsoft to keep updating that system at the speed that they want. Now, although this isn't fully not locked down, okay, Dynamics tries to avoid what are technically known as overlays and provides like alternative integration points into the system. Now, from a customer's perspective, this makes updating Dynamics a much simpler prospect. Okay, and from Microsoft's perspective, it allows them to enhance the Dynamics 365 platform much faster. And as many of us are aware, they're now evolving their platform at a truly impressive speed. Now, in short, the document management system you select should be Microsoft Lifecycle certified. This is extremely difficult for us as a software vendor to actually achieve because, at the moment, the systems aren't completely locked down. Okay, but what it does is it helps you protect your investment, not just in Dynamics, but also in your document output management system and any other customizations which you may be employing. Now, even if you're running Dynamics AX at the moment, this is still important if you're ever going to consider moving to Dynamics 365. Okay, it's a very important discussion to have with your vendor. Now, all leading document management systems will allow you to migrate between AX and D365 without having to recreate your document layouts. And this reduces your migration costs and risks significantly. Now, another thing we do at Bottomline is we kind of fully understand that when you invest in documents, one of the big investments is the time you spent creating your forms. So one of the things that we do is we actually offer a conversion rate which allows you to migrate most of your existing forms from AX 2012 to 365, even if they were not originally created in our software. Now, one of the basic architecture considerations is how will you create output from Dynamics. Now, this is usually achieved with the use of connectors. Now, connectors should be transparent to users to the extent that they're unaware that they're no longer using native Dynamics output to create their reports and forms. The connector will typically create XML files to pass information to the document management system. And it's not unusual for connectors to require upgrading with new releases of Dynamics, but this should be a simple code replacement exercise. Now, as we talked about, Microsoft is upgrading its systems very, very quickly at the moment. And it's another important discussion to have with your vendor. Are they keeping up with those releases? As an example, probably about 4 or 5 weeks ago for Dynamics 365, we were looking at upgrade number 4 moving to 5. As we speak today, we're on upgrade 8 of those. And it's very important that your software vendor absolutely keeps up with those releases to avoid any problems that you're going to have. Now, modern connectors are also going to help you traverse your Dynamics data tables to make creating data feeds out of Dynamics much faster and simpler. And it makes a little difference where the document management system resides, in Azure on-premise. Most of the hard work is going to be carried out inside the document management system itself. This will basically turn the XML files into appropriately formatted output and ensure that it's routed to where it's needed. This of course means that any forms developed in AX 2012 can be used with D365 if or when you migrate. Although in practice what we find is that some changes still do need to be made to the data feeds, but that's a pretty straightforward, quick process in order to do that. Sorry, I got my slides mixed up a bit there. Another key consideration is where to host your document management solution, which can have a significant impact on your print architecture. Okay, if you look at how you host your document management, if it's on-premise, directing output where it's required is largely business as usual. You can pretty much devise it, point it at any device that you have access to on your network. If, however, you choose to deploy your document management outside of your firewall in the cloud, then printing is a little bit more complicated. Now, Microsoft has developed something called the document routing agent. This allows you to send documents to a designated server or workstation behind your firewall, which will then route the document to the required output device on your behalf. Now, there are clearly some compromises using the DRA at this point in time. The DRA does not give you quite as much control over things like printer-specific function, load balancing, as, say, an on-premise solution would. And there may also be some architecture-specific performance implications, but it is a good way of doing it. The other key consideration, we've seen this with a couple of customers already, is that you've got to make sure that the DRA is switched on at all times, because there's nothing behind the firewall to reroute the jobs. Obviously, the jobs are just going to sit there waiting to be processed. Now, earlier we discussed accessing documents directly from within Dynamics using external links to the document repository. And again, the connector needs to act as an integration point to facilitate this. And there are two basic ways in which a report can be passed to the document management systems. Now, the first is to pass the data one record at a time, and the second is to pass all records at once. And this needs to be specified when you set up your output. Now, sending all records at once is necessary for producing reports, which by their nature typically don't need to be tied back to an individual customer record. But if you want to store the documents against specific records, you must send those individual records individually. Now, the next choice you need to make is if you want to use Microsoft default AX storage or an alternative. Now, regardless of which you're going to use, the same code will be used for both. But if you use Microsoft's default, a PDF file will be returned to AX or 365. Otherwise, a link to the document repository will be returned to AX or to 365. Okay, and that link will then be associated with the individual customer record. Now, whichever method you use, basically it will allow documents to be accessed easily within Dynamics. Okay, but if you use the Dynamics default storage systems, okay, what it will do is it will make it much more difficult to select those records, those documents from external systems if you also want to do that. Now, there's a further consideration when you're looking at the architecture, and that is that if you're going to use a full cloud-based SaaS solution, something like Bottomline's PTX Connect, okay, they work slightly differently. Now, these systems will give you all the advantages of being able to automatically store your produced documents. They can help you track delivery, they can offer some collaborative tools, all of that sort of great stuff. Okay, but one of the things that they cannot do at the moment is they cannot return a link to your AX system. They can only return a PDF file, so you're constrained in terms of how you're going to access those PDF documents afterwards. You could, of course, log into the SaaS system, but that would require a separate login to do that. Now, I'm going to pause because we've kind of gone through a bit of technical detail, and now's probably a great time to catch a breath and sort of see if we've got any questions that have come in. So, Jason, do we have any questions at the moment?
Yeah, sorry, I just had to take myself off mute there. So let me look through what's here. We do have a couple. So there's a question saying my current document management system is not Microsoft Lifecycle Services compliant. Is this a problem?
Okay. The simple answer to that is that it may continue to work fine. Okay, but what it does is it introduces like an unquantifiable level of risk every time your document vendor or other software vendors, including Microsoft, introduce updates. Now, we did quickly touch upon, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, Microsoft have introduced, at least 3 updates, maybe 4, and you can manage this. But of course it means managing all of the overlay points in your software. And the big question is, you can do that, but why would you want to spend time monitoring this? Because it could have like severe adverse effects on your system if you don't have to. And if you do identify a conflict, quite honestly, what position are you in to do something about it? So, you can run with non-Microsoft Lifecycle Services compliant systems, but there is a risk associated with doing that.
Okay, there's another question here. Will external documents be slower?
Okay, I can't really speak all document management systems, but probably not. Well, certainly not in a practical way. Typically, we would see links of previews being sent back to Dynamics in about 3 seconds for individual documents. Now, what's probably worth saying is that we could probably service something between 10 and 15 users simultaneously with that response time. So in a practical sense, it's not really a major problem. But we're also asked in terms of people producing large batch runs of documents. And what we tend to say to customers as a starting point, which is very easily achievable, is that you can produce 1 document per second. But I know with a little bit of tuning, you can significantly upgrade that. Now, we've got one customer who produces a 1 million page, multi-page document run in a 12-hour period, and he does this on basically a monthly basis. And that works out, I don't know, it's going to be about 20 pages per second or something like that. So you can achieve quite high throughputs if you want to.
Does Bottomline support separate production test and development systems?
Yeah, absolutely, and we think this is like massively important. I can't really stress to you how important this is. We ship all of our DOM products with standard production test, dev, and DR environments, which maps onto what Microsoft now do with Dynamics 365. Okay, and the reason I can't really stress how much is I would say that on a weekly basis we have one of our customers phone in and they try to bypass all the due diligence associated with running document processes and developing stuff on a production environment, and it breaks one of their workflows. Now this sometimes can be quite critical. It makes perfect sense to sit down, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on.
Okay, just one last question at this point, asking how do you automate storage of regulated documents?
Oh, okay. That's an interesting one because it's something that is just such a common requirement that we made it so simple. You just add a checkbox when you set up the document project, because everybody's doing it and they're doing it all the time. And this ensures that basically all of the documents associated with regulated documents are always filed away, ready for audit when it's required.
Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions at this time.
Okay, great. In that case, look, thank you. There's some good questions there. And one of the things we've touched upon earlier is some of the high-level ways in which document management can help you. And those ways were DOM, communications, capture, storage, and archiving. But what I want to do is I want to take a whistle-stop tour of some of the more specific features which can help you improve your business productivity and service levels. Now, without any doubt, the main reason that most organisations initially invest in specialist document management systems is to save time and money creating forms. We see this time and time again. And our experience is that simple invoices, which would normally take a day or so using native tools to create, can be created in about 1 to 2 hours in specialist no-code environments. And we would like customers to do a lot of other things, but ultimately, the number one reason people buy document management systems is just to save time and money and avoiding the code. Now, expanding on that, specialist document management systems give you the tools you need to design brand quality output and remove a lot of the technical barriers preventing you from achieving first-class output quality in a timely manner and meeting all of your functional and branding needs. And the main reason we do this is by using graphics-based tools, which are a lot less technical environment. And just as one excellent example of this, we were at an exhibition once, and an engineer came up to our stand, and they'd spent 5 days programming barcodes with variable data into it using Dynamics AX. And they were absolutely astounded when we showed them how we could do the same thing in less than 30 seconds. And that was purely about having the right tool to do the right job. Now, we've got thousands of customers out there, about 4,000 customers using these systems. And over the years, we've managed to refine things that people need to do on a regular basis and develop the tools to help customers do those things. Another thing you can do is it's possible to create multiple documents from a single page report. So as an example, this would make it simple to create an invoice, send a shipping notification, create a picking note, make a delivery note, okay, and of course file all the copies of these, okay, with one manual task. Of course, one obvious application of this is meeting those regulated document archiving requirements automatically. But you can see this is potentially a very, very powerful tool in a way of enhancing document workflows outside of Dynamics. Now, something else we touched upon earlier was assured document delivery, and using Saas document solutions like PTX Connect, you can maintain the visibility of communications beyond the borders of your existing business. And in special instances, provide auditable proof of delivery too, if there may be some legal reasons or health and safety reasons that you want to do that. Now, this is a very useful tool to ensure that things like invoices and urgent purchase orders are getting acted on in a timely manner. And essentially what it's doing is it's helping you join up the communications gap between your internal Dynamics processes and external processes. They may be within your organisation or within your supply chain, but it helps you bridge that gap and you prevents you losing visibility. Something else that you can do is you can basically make document management workflows to be very intelligent and drive significant business efficiencies with rule-based delivery. In this example, we're using a document management to firstly intelligently route the required delivery note to the warehouse which holds the customer needs to ship. The second intelligent decision we're making is we're trying to make a decision based on the weight of the package, if we're going to use a standard courier or if we're going to use a standard postal service to deliver this package, depending on the cost and the weight of those packages. Now, we can provide pretty much any logic that you wanted on this. Any data that's available, you can apply logic to, and you can sort of see how this can quickly be used to create quite elaborate, complicated or quite elaborate workflows around the way that you manage and deliver documents. Something else which is a very, very powerful tool is interactive forms. Now, interactive PDF documents are very interesting for a lot of organisations. I mean, because there are very few businesses that don't rely on forms for formal capture of data for process enablement, things like account applications or customer compliance, etc. Now, as well as using your document management system to pre-fill information onto these forms, okay, which saves your customers a lot of time and effort filling out data that you already know about them, okay, it also allows them to digitally return those documents to you just simply with a mouse click, so that it's easier and faster for them to do so. Now, the data that's returned from these electronic forms is instantly processable. And this instantly processable data is hugely valuable. Account applications can be processed as soon as they're submitted, okay? And what's most important, and what we're kind of learning from this technology, the way our customers are using it, is it's not just about just processing very quickly. If they've got large quantities of data coming in, it helps them prioritize the responses which are going to have the best business impact. So for instance, if people were like applying for a bank account or mortgage loan or something, you could prioritize the customers that were asking for the bigger loans over the smaller loans, and that's going to have an impact on your business. The faster you can get to those customers, the faster you can respond, the more likely you are to close those businesses. Now, we actually have one customer that's using this to process pretty much all of their incoming data now, and they're processing about 150,000 forms a day, and that's having a significant impact on the efficiency of their business. Another thing you can do is you can embed data into PDF files. Now, delivering beautiful documents, really, it can enhance the brand and the perception of your brand, but it's also possible to attach almost any type of file to a PDF document for the recipient to extract. Now, this could be used to add data files, including, say, details of orders to help process your requirements, faster and more accurately, or including, processable invoice data to help your customer pay you faster. I mean, this capability basically helps you to help your customers to work with you a lot better and a lot closer than they could previously. Now, another really powerful feature of document management systems is the ability to transcode data and look up from a wide variety of sources. Now, we've already discussed how this is particularly useful for organisations that want to deliver information from several systems into a single point for consumption, to basically provide a better user experience for internal and external users. Okay, but it also turns out that document management systems are so powerful in this area that we have hundreds of customers that are exclusively using this in order to automate the transfer and migration of data between systems. It just seems that the systems are very, very powerful in that respect. Now, something else we come across, to be honest, more in the US than in Europe at the moment, is that disability legislation obliges businesses to facilitate access to their documents for visually impaired users. Now, basically, all quality document management systems are going to allow you to tag PDFs. The advantage of this is it means that commonly available free PDF audio readers can be used to read the document aloud. Okay. And this isn't really just important to meet accessibility requirements where there's a legislative requirement. It's also kind of a really nice way of just providing a better user experience. And last but not least, leading document repositories all allow you to create user-friendly front ends, which are going to be accessible from all of the mainstream browsers. Now, you can create intuitive portals to provide mobile access to your users, okay, on the device they want, so essentially they can access information when, where, and how they want at their own convenience. It's a significant user experience benefit, and as we all understand, user experience is kind of high up on the agendas of most companies. But it also allows you to service more customers, okay, both internally and externally, okay, at a much lower cost by helping them self-help. So it's one of those win-win situations that most businesses have pretty much started to wake up to now. Now, at the front end of this presentation, I said that I wanted to talk a little bit about security and safety. And by now you will have some insight into how powerful document management systems can be. And I'm sure it's occurred to some of you that without adequate controls, these can present a significant security risk. Now, we've already discussed the importance of Microsoft's lifecycle services and compliance there. Okay, but in addition to this, secure and robust document management systems must provide at least two other basic feature sets. First of all, they should support robust development environments. And we touched upon this on the questions and answers. Managing projects between development, test, and production environments. Okay, and this means much more than simply replicating a document management system in each environment. You need to kind of look at how projects are passed between those environments and checking to see, what facilities are available in those environments as the projects are passed between, say, test and production, is also another vital feature to make sure that as projects are deployed that they're not going to go wrong. Now, as I said in the questions and answers, every single week we see customers who try to shortcut these processes and they raise support calls and quite honestly, there is no need for them to have those problems. If we provide production test, development and DR systems as part of our licensing, and they save very, very little time by not following due diligence. Okay. The second quality document management systems will allow you to do is basically to segregate the roles of users, administrators and designers. Now this helps prevent accidental damage and data leaks with potentially embarrassing or severe legal and commercial implications, to be perfectly honest about it. But it's a segregation of duties that is going to kind of help protect your data behind the scenes. So we've covered an awful lot today, and I first of all want to say that thank you very much for joining us, and I hope you've gained some valuable information in return for the time that you've invested. And I quickly want to summarise some of the things we discussed, and basically those are that documents are crucial to the flow of information amongst employees, customers and suppliers, and they shouldn't really be left as an afterthought when you're setting up and thinking about how you're going to set up your systems. Next, that state-of-the-art document technologies can help you win more business through enhanced customer experience and more effective working practices. And finally, if for no other reason you consider using specialist document management systems, okay, they are absolutely without doubt going to save you time and money, and that's the primary reason that most customers first invest in these systems. Now that's pretty much all I wanted to talk to you about in this introductory session. So once again, thank you very much, and let's just open the line to see if there's any more questions. So Jason, do we have any more questions?
We do. We have a few more here, and if you have not entered yours yet, please do put it into the queue now, and we'll get to it along with the rest. So there's a question here asking about Bottomline's connection to Dynamics 365, and do you have customers who are connecting to it, and can you talk about how many?
Okay, the answer is yes, we do. Okay, in terms of specifics, I don't know the entire number. I know of about 4 or 5 that are currently doing this. And as I sort of said, we're very much constantly issuing updates to keep up with the releases of Dynamics. We're currently supporting up to, I think we're on upgrade 7, I think we're about to release upgrade 8. So far the feedback has been that it's going very quickly, the installations are going cleanly. Yeah, so far it's all very positive.
Okay, another question. Saying all of these things are technically possible in SSRS. Do you have anything do you do anything on top of this?
Okay, right. The simple answer is yes, all of these things are technically possible in SSRS. And some of the things we've talked about are just a small sample of some of the things that we can do. I mean, the reality is that technically you can do almost anything you want in SSRS, given enough time, resource, and to be honest, aspirin. What specialist document management does for you is it provides the right tools to help you create first-class results with minimum resources. In Bottomline's case, we've gradually refined the design tools, as I said in the presentation, working with about 4,000 users to kind of get the right tools to carry out those common tasks, okay? And what we find is that now with new users adopting the document management system, we find that they typically get a break even if they're creating between 6 and 10 documents, okay? And that, of course, it also helps free up a lot of development resources for other projects.
Okay, someone asks, what are the advantages of an interactive PDF file over online HTML forms?
Oh, okay. All right. This is a well-rehearsed argument. We get asked this quite a lot. Okay, and of course there are relative arguments in favour and against PDF forms versus HTML forms, which is it's a common question. Now the reality is that you've got to choose the best technology for each circumstances. But amongst some of the advantages of interactive PDF forms are things like portability, i.e. you don't need to be online when you're filling these things out. Another common advantage is that you can basically part complete a form, close it down, open it up a couple of days later, and then continue filling that form out before you hit the submission button. Or, we commonly see in businesses, when, if I'm sent a form to fill out and I'm asked for that, financial account information, I often have to send it over to our accounts team. So I can part fill the form, pass it on to a colleague to fill out, and that works really well. Most organisations are going to have standard forms for the data they want to capture anyway, and because they're all set up in A4 document format, it's relatively simple to basically tag those forms to make them interactive. And the final thing is we're finding when customers, for instance, our customers doing 150,000 forms a day, okay, one of the things that they particularly liked about this wasn't that it just automated and helped them prioritise the forms, it was that they were dealing with a wide demographic, and quite frankly, some of that demographic, when they received the form electronically, the first thing they did was printed it out to fill it in with a biro. And there's nothing wrong with that. If that's how your customers want to work, then we should allow them to work that way. And that's something that's quite difficult in a HTML environment. But there are relative advantages and disadvantages to both.
Okay, a question asking, could I embed a video into a PDF document?
That's a simple answer. Yeah, the answer is yes. You can pretty much embed any type of file that you wanted. So if you're producing, say, like an instruction manual or an installation manual, there's absolutely no reason you couldn't actually put a video in that to help the users even further.
All right, I want to make a final call for any remaining questions. We have one more left, and then we'll begin wrapping up. So, doesn't track document delivery require the recipient to link to an external system to access a document? Isn't this less convenient?
Okay, I mean, yeah, I guess there is an extra step involved, and arguably it could be less convenient. Our experience is that because the system is capable of presenting all the documents sent to a recipient in one go, not just the current document they've sent, that this basically is well responded to by the vast majority of users, and it helps them manage their workflow. So they're not dealing with, like, I don't know, 20 emails or 15 different letters. They can just deal with you in one go. Now, as an example, many of our customers use this for sending invoices, okay? And because the recipient can register to have their own account, and it is a true federated SaaS system, PTX will present all of the invoices sent to them from all of their suppliers, not just you. And it massively helps with their workflows. Now, we currently have about 5,000 paying customers on this PTX system of various types. And one of the things we're finding is quite common is that when a new user goes onto that system, they can gradually see more and more suppliers putting their or delivering their invoices into them. And it almost becomes like a workflow destination that they go to on a common basis. So, yeah, there is a downside that they've got to log into an external system, but there are other advantages for the recipient too.
Okay, well, that appears to be the last of our questions here. So, Chris, I think we can begin wrapping up.
Brilliant. Well, that's pretty much it from me today. So finally, I would like to say thank you once again for joining us, and hopefully it's been a good use of your time. And if you want to find out more about how Bottomline can help you with your document processes, please do not hesitate to get in contact with us. And yeah, once again, thank you very much for your time today.
All right, we appreciate the questions, and Chris, we appreciate you taking the time. We do have a quick poll that will pop up for all of you on the event today. Any feedback you can provide in that in just a few seconds, 15, 20 seconds, would be greatly appreciated as well for both us and I know for Chris and the Bottomline team too. We did record today's event. We'll be making that details on that available soon. And with that, we're going to conclude today's event. Have a great day, everybody.